Okay, good morning. We're going to call the Tuesday, July 2nd, Stormwater Management Committee meeting to order. We have roll call, please.
Eckhoff, Evan, Garcia,
Here.
Hinterlong, Miro, Hojak, Leith, Tornatori, Yusuf, Day.
Here. Okay, a quorum of the members is physically present. I'll entertain a motion to permit member Pojak, who's physically not present due to personal disability, employment purposes, business of the board, family, or other emergency or unexpected childcare application, but via video or teleconference. Moved by member Sard, second by member Brummel. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Warren Chester. Okay, move on to public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. I don't, do we have anybody? Nobody wants? Okay, okay. Morning, Kay.
Morning, everybody. So we are real excited. The STEMapalooza is increased to 4 days this year at the DuPage County Fair. And we have some new projects and exhibits. And the one we're most excited about is what's living in your pond. So we're going to have microscopes and kids doing exploring of the life in our waterways here in DuPage County. So 4 days gives us a great opportunity to work with lots of people about watersheds and floodplains and all things having to do with water and saving energy. So we're very excited. That's really all that's new right now.
Thanks, Kay. We look forward to seeing you at the fair. Our staff always does a great job. Okay, no more public comment. Chairman's remarks. I have none. Looks like it's going to rain, but good time. Always rains right around budget, right, Nick? Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'll move on to approval of the minutes. I have a motion on 24-1702, approval of the Tuesday, June 4th minutes. Garcia, second by member Desart. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to claims reports. Can I have a motion on 24-1865, schedule of claims June 2024? Garcia, second by member Desart. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Move on to budget transfers. I have a motion on 24-1860, transfers of funds from 1,600, 3,054, 060, drainage system infrastructure, 153, 224, to equipment and machinery, 153,224. Budget transfers for the purchase of the backup generator. It was removed from the overall project bid as a standalone capital equipment due to excessive lead time for Armstrong Park. Second by member Desart. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Got a motion on 24-1861, transfer of funds. Land right of way, 40,000 to automotive equipment, 40,000, but transfer needed to purchase county vehicles, stormwater management, working with DOT, yada, yada, yada. Moving member Desart, second by member Garcia. We had another our guys came to us. We had another vehicle that's under the miles, but the frame has rusted away. So it's a safety issue. So we have to go out and buy. We found out, you said this was a really bad year for these cars. They seem to be really falling apart.
A specific model of the Ford Escape, almost all of the chassis have rusted through before taken out of service, to the point that we get nervous. It gets expensive just to get our vehicles serviced because they get taken out and we have to buy new ones.
So we're a little bit early on this, but out of safety, we have to do it. So, okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, staff reports. Any questions on the staff reports? Member Desart.
Thank you. I just had, I noticed on the staff reports, the Main Street Storage Basin in Lyle, which was an ARPA project. I was at a District 5 meeting on Friday, and the Lyle Village manager, Eric, I can't say his last name, was there and talked about a number of stormwater projects that he would like to see. And he said that he also mentioned them to member Deacon Garcia. So I'm wondering if maybe at some point, maybe Courtney could schedule a meeting with Eric, the village manager, Chair Zay, member Deacon Garcia, and I to talk about some of his wish list. Not that he would be granted, the stormwater projects, but I would like to hear his wish list in more detail. Is that something we can do?
Sure, member Garcia, if you want to, she already sent us the wish list of
Oh.
projects, so yeah, we're on top of it, staff's looking at it.
Oh, excellent. So we don't need a meeting to talk about it. You've got the wish list.
I think, we have the wish list. Eventually, when we go through the funding and stuff, I guess that's the time when we talk about what we can fund and what we can't fund.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to put 24-1904 and 24-1905 on, or receive and place on file? Member Desart, second by member Garcia, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Move on to action items. Can I have a motion on SMP 1624, approval of a contract issued to BME Electric for the purchase of a diesel emergency engine generator for Armstrong Park Flood Control Facility on the amount of $153,224 per lowest responsible bid. By member Desart, second by member Garcia. Any questions? They said 4 to 6 months for this.
Correct.
Hopefully then we'll have it for next year.
Yes, we should have it all installed by next spring.
Sounds good. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion on SMP 1724, enter an agreement with the county of DuPage and Gasper Albertsville, butchering it, consulting for on-call professional land surveying on the amount of $60,000. Moved by member Desart, second by member Garcia. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Got a motion on SMR 2-24. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and York Township Road District for the Luther High Ridge Flood Mitigation Project. By member Garcia, second by member Desart. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Got a motion on SMP 1824, approval of a contract issued to Martam Construction for the Luther High Ridge Flood Relief Project for stormwater management, period July 9th, 2024 through November 30th, 2028. For the amount not to exceed $1,508,699.20 per lowest responsible bid. Moved by member Desart, second by member Garcia. Any questions? You said we got a lot of bids on this?
We did. I can't remember the number, but it may have been in double digits. A lot of bidders, a lot of people trying to finish up their construction season.
Good. Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Got a motion on SMO 1-24, ordinance declaring the assignment of easements from Forest Preserve of DuPage County to the County of DuPage necessary for convenient conveyance to the DuPage County for Luther High Ridge Drainage Improvement Project in the High Ridge Forest Preserve. Moved by member Garcia, second by member Desart. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. We have a motion on SMP 1924, approval of an easement agreement between the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County and the County of DuPage for storm sewer within York High Ridge Forest Preserve, amount not to exceed $41,677.38. By member Garcia, seconded by member Hinterland. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Move on to discussion. 2025 budget. Sarah?
Sure. Right, can we move to that presentation? Good morning. I am going to go through our 2025 budget presentation, and actually on the end of this, there'll also be an ARPA update. At the county board meeting this coming next Tuesday, 1 week from today, there's going to be an ARPA update, but we wanted to make sure the Stormwater Committee had that update ahead of that. And so to start with the budget presentation, if there are any questions, just raise your hand. I'll try to grab you in that slide because it's probably germane to the slide that is showing. And so with that, next slide, please. Our mission and how we design this budget is with the mission in mind of protecting the citizens and businesses of DuPage County from the impacts of stormwater runoff. And that is both water quality and water quantity. Juggling both of those items can be tough at times, but we think that this budget will continue those efforts. On the bottom, you'll see that we have approximately 40 full-time employees. Currently, we're staffed at 38 full-time employees with the intention of probably bringing on 2 more. We're in the interview process right now. And if we bring on those 2 more, we're going to be completely full staff. That's something that has not happened, as far as I know, in a long time. And as far as I know, we're not looking at any early attrition, but I'll knock on wood on that one. So next slide. Our budget is complementary to all of our program areas: watershed management and water quality, floodplain mapping, operations and maintenance, regulatory, and shared services. Looking at all of these items and making sure that we're continuing these efforts forward in our program is critical to stormwater management. Next slide. So getting into the budget, and of course, we want to start with our program revenue. Stormwater is primarily funded by property taxes levied specifically for stormwater management, and that is for our regional program. Programs that are specific to unincorporated are actually required to be taken out of the general fund. And so we do separate that out and provide a separate accounting for our drainage program. In addition to that, we also receive an additional levy from the general fund, and that primarily contributes to our reserve fund to build up that capital reserve, something that we are just starting to do in the last 10 years to make sure if something happens or there's a large need at one of our facilities, we have the account in our reserve. So we don't always have to go back to the general fund and ask for that funding. Our property taxes have been holding pretty steady around 9.4 million, and our interest has increased significantly since we've been working on a reserve fund where we bring in almost $1 million worth of interest. In the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen an uptick in our permitting revenue. Permitting is busy. There's a lot of development going on, a lot of permit applications coming in. I think this year we're marking our highest number of applications at the mid-year point that we've seen since our program has been tracking this. And so we have seen that revenue go up as well. And then we have some miscellaneous revenue. That's our shared services program. We did a project for the village of Bartlett, and they reimburse us for those activities. Some other shared services programs, as well as work that we do for other departments, go into that miscellaneous revenue. So next slide, please. Yes, go ahead, Jim. Or Chair Zay, sorry.
You know, our revenue from the property tax was much higher. That was taken away by Chairman Schillerstrom in 2001. I'm still waiting for that money to be given back to us. I'm kind of giving out hope since it's 2024, 2025 budget, but that's why we get that supplemental 3 million.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. That used to go when it was levied from the property tax that Chair Zay is referencing, that actually all went into capital infrastructure. And since the previous Chair Schillerstrom reduced that amount, we have been getting a levy from the general fund. We used, I want to say it was almost 20 million at one point. I'd have to look back. It's the early 2000s that it went away. So before my time as director.
They took it with about 15 million.
And so by reducing that levy, we've been asking for a supplement from the general fund. Thank you, Chair Zay, for pointing that out. And something else I'd like to point out in our revenues is that in addition to the revenues that we project, we also spend a lot of time, as Member Dessart pointed out in the last county board meeting, applying for grants, earmarks, and other federal funding opportunities. This year we have it projected, early projections were 8.1 million. Actually, yesterday we learned of another opportunity where we're actually applying for a standalone $10 million grant. Who knows if we'll receive it or what budget year it will hit, but usually somewhere around $5 to $10 million worth of grants we apply for and receive significant amounts from that process as well. So going into our program expenditures, I do want to point out that when we did our 2024 budget and presented our 5-year plan on the 2024 budget, our projected amount for 2025 was about 1.5 million than what we are proposing today, or sorry, 1.1 million less than what we are proposing today. That 1.14 million increase is due to obligations that are, or funds that are obligated this year in 2024 that'll carry over to next year. That Armstrong Park generator is a primary example that was on our agenda earlier. That generator, although we're putting forward the purchase order to purchase it next week, we don't expect to receive it until February. And so with that process in mind, we have to make sure those funds are in our 2025 budget. So our obligated expenditures are much higher than anticipated when we presented our budget last year. So there is an increase, but our overall net spending will be the same over our 5-year plan. Member Desart?
Thank you, Sarah. This, you know what, this might be a dumb question, but I just want to be educated. When you come up with expenditures for 2020, for the next year, 2025, do you question all of like 31 municipalities and all the park districts and find out a wish list from all of our fellow governmental agencies? I just don't know. I want to be educated. Thank you.
Sure. So we do reach out to all of our municipalities. We have gotten as mentioned, a wish list from several communities. I think Member Krajewski mentioned it to his District 3 communities, and they have been reaching out. We do take all of that into consideration, and some of that won't always hit our 2025 budget, and some of it will hit our 2026 budget. Some of the areas we need to develop plans for so we can apply for federal grants. And so we try to look at all of that as we're preparing our budget.
And as a follow-up, how do you, what's the word? I'm having a senior moment. How do you prioritize them? Thank you.
Sure. Our first priority is always things that fall into an approved watershed plan. And so if we've looked at it as an approved project in our watershed planning process, that is our first priority. That means it's already been vetted by the public, by all of the stakeholders, by the county board. And so that is our first priority. And then from there, we look at major program influences. For example, we are looking at some needs in the Ferry Creek watershed. And so we know that if we can get the plan completed in the Ferry Creek watershed, we can look at grant funding to bolster that plan. And so that is our overall process and how we balance that.
And if it's in the chairman's district, and if you're nice to the chairman, not the county board, that's usually the other things.
And who's not nice to Chair Zay? Who is not nice to Chair Zay? So again, looking at our 2025 requested budget, we do have a significant transfer into our capital reserves fund. Again, this was all projected through our process, and we are updating our reserve study. We are in process of that. We want to keep our reserve study updated, doing constant inspections on our major flood control facilities like the Elmhurst Quarry to know if there's something in our 5, 10, 20-year plan and whether it's staying in the out years or whether there's significant damage and we need to move it into the 5-year plan. And so we are always going through that process. We're looking at our most recent update being completed in the next 3 months. And so that will be the driver of our 2026 budget. Next slide. So looking at our year-over-year return and what we are doing in our program and expenses, you can see that our personnel services, that's the bottom gray section, our personnel services and our commodities have remained pretty consistent year over year. Where we see some fluctuation is in the blue, that's our contractual obligations. What we see in our 2025 program request is working with communities and townships more, kind of stemming off of what we did through the ARPA program and reaching out to the communities and townships and doing more with the communities and townships and coming up with a way to match share funding on their critical projects. And so that's what we're seeing as a big thing in our contractual obligations. And then, of course, as I mentioned, in our capital obligations is that carryover that we had from our 2024. So our 2024 spending is down from what was projected, but we have taken all of that and pushed it into 2025. So 2025 is significantly higher. So that's the big item of our budget that we're seeing. Next slide. So what we've been trying to do, and you can see we had some years where our actual expenditures were significantly less. Those were what we would call our COVID years, and we shifted pretty much all of our resources to spend our ARPA funds and go through our ARPA programming and get that infrastructure in the ground. And so a lot of our expenditures were less, but we are seeing a need to get those back up, and it is programmatic to get them back up to servicing our stormwater infrastructure. And so in our out years, we're trying to level off our expenditures and our revenues to keep those steady, because that's what a budget should do. Next slide. So that was it for our main stormwater budget. I'll take any questions specifically on that, and then we'll go dive into our ARPA budget and that update. Yes, Member Krajewski, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, back in 2021 or whenever you used to be 20 million, did you have 40 people in your stormwater department? Or did you have more?
We did not have more. 40 is what we have approved for head count.
Okay, and then, you know, as far as what's your capacity for additional work to be able to do in next year with 40 people? And if you were to do programs with municipalities and bringing in outside consultants to do like phase one, do the studies and the plans to have those on the shelves for future, what could you handle? $5 million more?
We can always handle more.
Why not? I'm just asking you, what's a realistic number?
Realistically, and being.
This is using outside consultants to do the studies, and
Sure.
maybe jointly with municipalities, park districts, or whoever.
Sure, with our 40 staff members that we have and the people who are managing contracts, there is that leveling off of how much we can handle and how much we can effectively manage, and making sure that we are balancing it correctly. We do have a pretty good projection of what we think we can handle. I'm sure if there was a major influx or a major need, we could accommodate that. And we may need to bring on a program like you may have seen in the recent DOT budget, where they have a larger consultant group that essentially kind of manages that program. It would be difficult to add more just with the amount of work. And actually, it's fair to say the stress on the industry. Consultants are busy.
But we could take more money. from
Yes, we can always
this.
take more
I'm just
funds.
trying to get her to get that. She's very good
Well,
at
that's
that.
what I'm trying to understand, because, you know, my thought is, and one, I think it's very important well, stormwater is important for the whole county and the communities, but remember, a number of the county board members are dealing with stormwaters in their districts, and we heard Paul up there, see with District 2 and start with District 5, my District 3 meeting the other day. We're gonna get to the end of this budget year with a big surplus. We're gonna get to the same thing we did the last 4 years. What are we gonna do with this money? And before staff comes to us and says, we're gonna build another building or two, I think, you know, our 10 of us board members should be saying, this is a priority stormwater, and we should take this, you know, surplus. Our expenses are gonna be way under again this year, as Jeff mentioned last week, our revenue's running above, and just say, we're gonna influx $5 million or some number into stormwater. And like I said, we can work jointly with our park district municipalities and get some of bring on the consultants, bring some of the people in to do some of these phase studies, you know, for plans. You know, if you get a $10 million grant or to apply, or at least even the municipalities can then have a plan in place to say, maybe they'll fund it through their own, you know, surplus or whatever they're gonna do. But, you know, I think we need to put more money. I think it's important to most of the county board members, and I think we should be the ones dictating, this is where the money should be going. And we're starting right now with this budget, so I think that, you know, Stormwater Committee comes out saying we want some more money influxed in here, and I believe I've talked to enough board members that they want money in stormwater.
Right. I mean, obviously, you just can't give us money. We can build stuff tomorrow. You gotta do phase one, you gotta do phase two engineering. You gotta do all the engineering first and work with those communities. And like I said, then we can apply for federal, like we do on transportation, other projects. So yeah, that's a good idea. That's the thing. We also got to remember though, too, it's not like we haven't worked with it. If you look at the end of this ARPA list, we have 40+ projects we've done over the last couple of years with municipalities and townships. That's a lot more than we've ever done. So we are working with them, but we all know flooding is a problem, continues to
And
be a
I don't know
problem.
where your glass is, but when I was mayor and I was sleeping, they, you know, the Village of Downers Grove did the big study brought them in, and they had, if they had unlimited funds, their stormwater needs was like $360 million to do all the work that needed to be done. That's just one town.
Right.
You know, and so there's plenty of work for stormwater, but I think we just need to you know, show everybody, you know, the county that it's a priority to us and we're gonna put some more money.
No, I agree.
And as Chair Zay mentioned, as we go through the ARPA program update, you'll see that the funds that were allocated to stormwater from the county board, and that we were able to do both county infrastructure as well as community infrastructure. Those communities worked very hard on spending that money. And again, it takes time to go through it. And I think if the communities know that we have a plan in place and a consistent, steady and stable plan in place, they can plan for that funding in their 2, 4, 5-year plans.
Members, sir.
Thank you. You put your money where your priorities are, and I just wanted to say that all of our committees and all of our departments are important for sure. But when I'm talking to my stakeholders, mayors, city managers, stormwater is the #1 concern across the board. Just wanted to say that in case we wanted to look at our budgeting process and put our money where the stakeholders want it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with what they're saying. You know, I think Sarah and I had a discussion the other day that I'd love to see more money come toward the East Branch of DuPage. It seems like it was just yesterday when, you know, Route 53 was underwater and boats were going down it. And now it's really, I know. But it's really been about 11 years. And so I
Yeah.
really want to get some money going there to try to help some of those people that are there's still homes there that are still not even put back together from the 2013 flood. So
Sure, and that was one area that was hit hard, and we had a
Yeah.
larger countywide event in 2008 as well as in 2020.
Right.
Some significant events.
yeah, I
And-
do have to thank you for the Main Street storage and the St. Joseph Creek. I know it's coming.
Yes, it's out to bid
Because-
today.
I know. So
We have
thank
3
you.
minutes to
Yep.
finish the ARPA update.
Sure.
so.
And I will email this presentation to all the committee members. And so we did start with our original ARPA budget of 22 million. And the breakdown was 10 million on county-owned projects, almost 10 million on municipal and township projects, and then some contractual and administrative costs. Going through that as of Friday afternoon, our final obligation approved by our department, sent to the finance department for payout. We've spent 13.3 of that. And then we are looking at, by the end of October, having that nearly fully spent. Now, the end of October is an important timeline that I'll just explain in just a moment. Next slide. And these are again, it'll be easier to see when you receive the presentation, but these are the projects that we have completed or are 95% complete, and the entities that we've completed them with. We've seen great success, and although we're contributing 500,000, we're looking at more of $1, $2, or $3 million of infrastructure that went in the ground with those projects. And so we've seen great success with that. And our bigger stress is that we know we need to have the ARPA funds obligated by October 31st, 2024. Next slide. And so we have reached out to all of the communities, and we've gone through and looked at our risk with our ARPA projects. And the projects on the bottom are our projects that we know are high risk projects. Either they're still in the design phase or they're not under construction yet. Or the construction schedule is that they are not looking for a reimbursement prior to October 31st. So we've labeled those as high risk, and we'll continue to reach out to the communities. And in October, we may make that discussion, and we have this already set up in an IGA with all of the communities, that those funds come back to the county if they're not able to have their projects substantially complete by October 31st. We do believe that we will be in a good place for that, but we will continue to reach out to all of the communities and work with them to know their schedule. So we're prepared to make sure none of the county's ARPA funds are lost. Next slide. So just kind of reiterating this, by October 31st, we expect to have 20 million of that 22 million spent, with administrative fees and some other county costs to remain in the remaining two years of the ARPA funds. And with that, I am done with the ARPA update. If there are any other presentations, I won't take up JPS's time.
Well, I appreciate Sarah. The ARPA thing's the big thing. I know Brian, we did put 100,000 for travel though, to stormwater this year, but that's okay. But we've given that money out. We did have the the deadline on the IGA. So we want to make sure these projects are going. If not, we're gonna take that money back. So I mean, we don't want that money to go to waste, so we can use it in other stormwater projects here.
One last question, Sarah, if you could just put together at least your thoughts on what the maximum amount is that you could handle next year if you
Huh.
did get an influx in stormwater, just serious, just so the board will have that as we get into towards the end of the year and we get this, what are we gonna do with this surplus again? How are we gonna allocate it? Just so we know your max, not, it may not be that, but just what you could handle next year.
So if I could throw that out quickly, Brian, I think we could handle an additional 2 million next year, but that would give everybody time to plan if we had it in our fund and obligated for a spend in 2026. So we obligate funds usually 6 months in advance. So we would obligate those funds in 2024.
And we'll talk with staff, like Nick knows, we did, once we put money into an infrastructure fund, which was surplus money for stormwater, public works, transportation, we can do something like that and earmark, a certain amount for stormwater. Okay, any other questions? Any old business? Any new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by member Hiralong, seconded by member Garcia, all in favor? We're adjourned, thank you.